really was to
that I felt like I needed, and I was comfortable in that space of just me and God.
It is offensive. Hope is desperate.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Happy Monday. You know what time it is. This is Jumpstart Your Vision with Coach Karen Hilton. I am Coach Karen Hilton, and I want you to know something. We are so excited that you are here. We have an incredible guest this morning where we're talking about how your story reveals your purpose. Come on in here. If you are joining us for the first time, if you are new to our community, we want to say welcome. This is the place for vision-driven entrepreneurs, workplace leaders, and the mission-minded to rock their vision from the lens of faith. I hope that this is the place that you find at least one item, one power play that you can embed in your business, in your life, in your family, in your home, in your walk with God that will help you take things to the next level. Why not? Life is too amazing to just sit back and be ordinary. So on behalf of Pastor Andy Smith, who is our community pastor, and all of the Rock Your Vision team members, I just want to say you're in a great place to start your week. So come on in here. If you are joining us live, jump into the chat. Y'all know that we love to shout people out. We love to answer your questions. So jump in here. I don't care if you're a CEO of $1 billion company or you're just trying to rock your vision in your own home. We want you to get curious about what it means to rock your vision from the lens of faith, focus, purpose, and perspective. All right, come on in here. I just want to shout out our executive technical director who's behind the scenes making it all happen. Coach John Kovaleski is in the background. He is my twin. John, pop in here for a minute so people can see you. I think they think that maybe I'm making it up. There he is.
Yeah, can't you tell we're twins?
It's so good to see you. Thanks so much for all your
quite
support
welcome.
and help. He's going to be in the background making the magic happen. So come on in here. I have a lot to share with you today, but you know what? There's something really, really special happening at 8:33 this morning, Eastern time. Does anybody know what it is? If you're in the chat, does anybody know what special thing is happening this morning at 8:33 a.m.? If you know what it is, drop it in the chat. I'm going to give everybody a minute to join. But we got all kinds of things happening going on in the world. We've got Angela Hughley-Bolds. I hope I said that right. Good morning, Angela. So happy that you're here. Come on in. We are so excited. We have an incredible guest. Some of y'all know who this guest is. And I'm telling you, she's going to rock your world. You talking about rocking your vision. She's going to rock your world. We're going to talk about it. Let's see. Jessica Banner coming in from Scotland. Come on in here, girl. We see you. Jessica Banner is an incredible leader. Tiffany, do you know Jessica? Y'all need to talk. Jessica is an incredible licensed degreed therapist. She is an incredible counselor for the Influencers Atlanta family. She also is in the process of writing. She's working on becoming an author. She is an incredible part of our community. She always has such wisdom and insight. So we've got some things coming up that I may invite her to. So, you know, yes. Come on in here. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to this idea of story. Now, one of the women who is really kind of a beacon for me in this area wasn't able to join us today, but I'm hoping to have her on a separate show. Her name is Karen Eber. Karen has been on our show before. She's participated in our Vision Summit. And this woman has a storied career, but she also has a very powerful personal testimony and story about the power of her own story and how it really helped her lean into her purpose. So you've got something to look forward to. there. Let's see. Okay, let's get right down to it. Remember, if you are joining us from Facebook, make sure to allow StreamYard. You'll get a prompt that comes up. Make sure to actually click on the story. Don't just kind of watch us from afar, because that helps our traffic. That helps say to Facebook that, yep, we're in the right place and we want to be here. And that way we can know your name. Okay. So make sure to let StreamYard know you're here. All right. So when we talk about story, I have a question for all of you out there. Do you know your story? Sounds like a trick question. Just, do you know your own story? Do you know your story? And you might say, well, Karen, why would you ask me this question? Like, I'm an experienced executive or an entrepreneur, or I'm a mom, I'm a ministry leader, whatever. Of course, I know my own story. But you would be surprised, friends, how many of us actually don't know our story. We're busy living our story, but we don't necessarily know our story. So again, the question is, do you know your own story? I'm going to introduce you to somebody today who really has been inspirational for me. She has also been a beacon of light in a couple of different ways based on her own story. And I remember the day when we met. We were at church, and she literally was walking down the aisle into the room, and I was coming from the other direction, and we just locked eyes. And I'm like, wow, there is something about this woman right here. And I said to her, I don't know who you are, but there's something here, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Good morning, Dr. Tiffany Pierce.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And good morning, Angela.
It's so good to see you. Is Angela part of your tribe?
Yeah, she's so sweet. She's always so supportive. So every time I see her, I just have to shout her out.
Come on. Well, Angela, thanks so much for supporting Dr. Tiffany. We love her, probably not as much as you love her, but we are delighted that you're here. Dr. Tiffany is an author, a speaker, and a purpose and alignment strategist. We need to get this right. She's an author, a speaker, and a purpose and alignment strategist. And I personally love anything strategy. But if you know anything about Dr. Tiffany, you understand why she says she's a strategist. And I'm going to let her break it down in just a moment. But I want to tell you a little bit about her. Her business is called Oh So You Coaching, and everything she does falls under the umbrella of saving, teaching, and reaching souls. She calls it the STARS method. I want to hear more about that. She lives her mission out loud through coaching, writing, teaching, and speaking to the hearts and souls of women from all walks of life. That's powerful. Like, I immediately want to know more about what it is you're doing. I've got a little bit of an inside track, but I want you to tell us a little bit about what you do, how you do it, and be sure to tell us about those beautiful boys you've got somewhere there in the background. Good morning, Dr. Tiffany.
Good morning again, everyone. So I'm so excited to be here. Like Karen said, I am a purpose and alignment strategist, and the name of my business is Oh So You Coaching. And I'm really passionate about working with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial women of faith. And I help women to get out of their own way, maximize their potential, and walk in their purpose. And I'm also a pharmacist. So a lot of the things that I do kind of stems from some of the things that I learned in pharmacy. And one of the things that we learned when I was in pharmacy school is we always learned the mechanism of action, the way medications work. And so the way my mechanism of action, or the way that I am effective in my business, is I help women do three things. I help women to heal, grow, and accelerate. And I'm so excited about, I haven't always been clear about my mission, but the Lord has really been working with me. I've been doing this for about 6 years now. And a lot of you guys know, if you have businesses, that you pivot a lot. And so I really feel like I'm finally really coming into my purpose and what God really wants me to do. And it's really helping women to understand that before you can do anything, you really have to heal. And once you heal, that's when the growing begins. And when you grow, that's when the increase comes. And that's when God is able to really accelerate you and launch you into your purpose. But it really starts with you healing. And as Karen mentioned, I call it STARS. My mission is to save, teach, and reach souls. And I didn't really understand this mission. God gave me this many years ago before I even had a business. And I did not know exactly what he meant by this, but he said that stars was going to be your mission. And he gave me the acronym saving, teaching, and reaching souls. And now I realize it, because once I started coaching, I realized that a lot of women were stuck in their mind. And the soul has to deal with the mind, your emotions, the heart, and your will. And I believe that once you get your heart right, and once you get your emotions, because your heart, your thoughts, your mind, and your heart are connected. Once you get those in alignment, then God is able to accelerate you. And so that's what I do mainly. I really work with women to help them to understand some of the things that they've gone through in their past, some of the trauma that may have not been healed, past pain, past trauma, how to really see that from a spiritual standpoint, and not allow it to hinder them, not allow it to make them get bitter, but allow it to make them better, and allow them to not be shamed or uncomfortable with their story and what they've been through, and how they can use what they've been through to propel them forward, because God does not waste anything. And so that's pretty much what I do, just to summarize.
Just to summarize, I absolutely love that. You said a whole lot right there. What I'm really interested about, and what I would love for you to kind of unpack for our community, is your story to hear. You are a degreed pharmacist. You have your degree in pharmacology, is that right?
Yes.
Your advanced degree in pharmacology. You are a learned woman of the word. You love the word. You study the word. You have prepared. You've gotten certifications. You are constantly learning and teaching. You also host a live stream. Is that right?
Yes, Tuesdays with Tiffany, every other Tuesday. So we'll be live tomorrow.
Okay, so you're coming up live tomorrow. Y'all heard it here first. Go follow Dr. Tiffany on social media. I'm going to ask John, if you can grab from her website her social media handles, and just pop them in the chat, because we want people to go directly from here to go and follow you on social media. And you go live. Is it on Facebook and Instagram, or just Instagram?
It's Facebook and Instagram now. So yes.
Okay, Facebook and Instagram. Y'all go support Dr. Tiffany. Get in the chat. I'm telling you, we joined last week. No, not last week, the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to let her unpack the topic. But I was literally in my house doing my stuff, listening to her, taking notes, and having a shout party all at the same time, because she dropped some things that I needed to hear. And I think she is a leader in time, on time, for a season just for this. She's got some things to say, and I think she can help you unlock what you're looking for when it comes to rocking your vision. So, Dr. Tiffany, one of the things that one of the ways that we have connected very deeply is through your book. Y'all, I'm an avid reader. If you look in my house, books everywhere. I have a few favorite books, the first of which is the Bible for me. The second favorite book in all of my years is this book right here. The book that Dr. Tiffany Pierce wrote. It's called Peace Stealers, 21 Reasons Why You're Anxious, Why It Matters, and What to Do About It. I want y'all to know this is a power-packed Bible study. It has journal prompts where you can literally use it like a workbook. I have used it in my high seasons, and I have literally been in my prayer room crying because I had stuff that I needed to work through. And this has been a game changer for me. Dr. Tiffany, tell us about the journey to writing Peace Stealers.
Yes. So I started my business in 2016. And I really did not know what I was doing, but I was being obedient to God. And so when I first started out coaching, I was a general life coach, meaning I was helping women with goal setting and just anything in general that they needed help with. If they felt stuck, I could help them to move from where they were to where they wanted to be. But ironically, a lot of the women that I was coaching always dealt with anxiety. And that was my story. I really never broadcasted. I never really told my story, but I kept having that same reoccurring theme of anxiety. Anxiety was holding these women back, fear, worry, doubt, things like that. And so I began to ask God, this is not a coincidence. I think we have to pay attention sometimes to God speaks in whispers. And so I asked God, I said, do you want me to tell my story? I believe you want me to tell my story. And so I began to kind of write my story down, because sometimes we think that our story is insignificant. We don't, because I never intended to tell my story. Like, I never thought going through anxiety that I would help other people to overcome anxiety. I never thought that I would write a book on peace and finding your peace in anxiety. But when I started speaking to these women who were dealing with anxiety, I realized that a lot of people are going through this. And so this was, God had been dealing with me about my story for a while, but I wrote the book in 2019. It came out right before the pandemic. And I had no idea we were going into a pandemic. And so it was God, because, during the pandemic, mental illness and anxiety and depression was on an uprise. And so it was really God setting me up. I did not know. And so that's how I got to the journey of writing the book. I began to tell my story, and I began to write. When do I remember the first time I was anxious? And I remember I was about 7 years old. That's how I opened the book, talking about my first experience with anxiety. I did not know the language then. And then I started writing, when do I remember? Because I was like, it started at 7, but then I didn't really experience it again until college. Now, what happened in college that re-triggered that anxiety? So I just kind of went through my story and realized that, oh my God, this could really help someone. And that's when I began to write the book. Well, I did not, while I was working as a coach, because I was a full-time coach for many years, and God called me back to work in pharmacy. And I was really, really a little bit disappointed. I did not understand, because coaching is what I really feel God was leading me to do. And I thought that he was closing the doors in pharmacy. But the reason why I went back to work, because sometimes you don't understand what's going on in the middle of your story. But then when you look back, you realize that you see God's fingerprints all over your story.
Can I pause you right there for a minute? Yes. Okay. I don't know if y'all caught that. There was a whole little mini sermon in there. But you said that you looking back, you realize that God was shaping your story when you were 7 years old. Like, it started way back then. And of course, when we're little, we don't have an understanding of what's happened. We're just trying to go outside and play, right? We're trying to do those things. But then you said fast forward, and you were at a place in your career where you thought God was delivering you from something. I don't know if y'all are getting this. I need you to come into the chat and talk to us, because maybe this is just us, but sometimes in our stories, God will take us back to a place, not to punish us, not right. We got to get out of that. God is a big bad wolf waiting to zap us. That is not who God is. So you went back to that place, and you said you felt disappointed. There have been times in my life where God took me back to something. And when I realized he was taking me back to something, I had an attitude walking in it.
Yes, that's me.
I had an attitude. And I, the way God and I kind of hang with each other, I was like, I don't appreciate this. Like, I thought I felt tricked. Can you talk about, can you speak to that person, that woman, that author, that workplace leader who has a big vision, right? A big vision, but maybe they feel tricked or disappointed or let down. How did you navigate that?
So in the beginning, I wish I could say that I handled that season very well, because I went into the job and I wrote that I said, I'm going to be content and grateful no matter what. I said, it does not matter. But I wish I would have held I wish I would have held my end of the bargain, because I did not. Once I got to work, first of all, it was everything that I did not want. I was like, God, if I do have to work, can it be closer to home? And can I still be able to pick my son? I have an 8-year-old son. Can I still be able to pick him up from school? And can I have some days off during the week? Because as a pharmacist, I was used to working retail pharmacy, which means I have days off during the week, which means that I have time alone at home. Nobody's here. My son's at school. My husband's at work. I get to dream and pour into women. I get to, read, just really have some time for me. It was none of those things. It was downtown Atlanta, and I live in Kennesaw. So that was 3 hours one way, going to work back and forth. It was Monday through Friday. I had never had a Monday through Friday job. And I was not able to pick my son up from school. And my husband is also a pharmacist in retail, so he works long hours. So we had to rely on other people to get my child from school. So I was very, very frustrated and disappointed at God. And I felt like no matter how much faith I had, God always seemed to let me down. If I'm being
Stop right there. You know I can't let that pass. It didn't matter how much faith you had. It always felt like God was letting you down. I need I got to process that for a minute. You said that the book got published right before the pandemic. Now remember, family, all these years working, getting her degree, working for a national brand, doing all of these things. And then she published a book. And it would seem like, she had a launch party. This was no joke. This is legitimate. She's got an ISBN number. This was not something she printed on her printer. You know what I'm saying? She's featured on, amazing platforms. Soar Radio, if you are not familiar with Soar Radio, a 2-time Stellar Award-winning radio station. She's been on the Talk of Alabama, the Q Morgan Show, Women Conquering Stress Summit. She's got some things going on. So on the outside, you would think she's got it all together. What does she have to be anxious about? Like, how there's so much to ask right there. But you said you kept feeling like God kept disappointing you. So how did you move from going through all of that to actually getting this thing out the door?
Yeah, so I had to really come to the realization that I cannot run my own life. And that scripture, do not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge God and he will direct your path. Well, the disappointment comes when we're trying to understand our story while we're living it. That's when the disappointment comes, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what God has on the other side of it. And what happens is, and this is what I work with the women that I coach, a lot of times the enemy wants you to sit in that disappointment, because if you stay in that disappointment, if you allow the bitterness and not understanding what's going on, if you allow that to get into your heart, into your soul, it would come out in everything that you do. It would contaminate anything that the Lord wants to do with your life and with your story. I think about Joseph. All that Joseph went through, he had a dream, and that was me. I relate to Joseph so much. He had a dream, and he told his friends about his dream, and his brothers about his dream. My stories, I told my friends about my dream, and I had a similar situation as Joseph. But Joseph went through a lot before he got to the palace, to the promise. Now, what would have happened if Joseph would allow the disappointment of, I have faith, God, I have faith, and this is where I land up. I land up in prison. I'm lied on. This looks nothing like the vision that you gave me. If Joseph would allow that bitterness to come into his heart, he would have never interpreted dreams in prison. He would have never allowed his gift, because your gift stays with you no matter what. But if you're bitter, you're not going to allow the enemy is going to trap you, because you're not going to be who you are. You're going to hold on to the good parts of you. You're going to be so disappointed and so full of just discouragement and frustration that you're not allowing yourself to be who you are, because that's what God is going to use, who you are, your identity. And so if I would have stayed at that place of disappointment and frustration, which I did for a little while, but I had to realize that, do I trust God, or do I trust myself, or do I trust God? And so I began to trust God, and I began to say, God, I don't understand. I'm not able to coach women anymore. I don't have days off during the week, and my family is my first priority. So I'm not using my weekend. So I'm just going to use this time to prepare. And I'm going to use this time to seek your face. And I'm just going to stop everything that I've been doing. And so I had started writing the book before I started working at the job. But once I started working, this is February 2019 is when I started working, I put the book down. And I remember laying in my bed one day, and I was just so discouraged. And I was like, this is just like Joseph might have felt in prison. This is not the life that I envisioned for myself.
Wow.
But this time, what a lot of times what we do is we run to social media, we run to food, we run to Netflix to kind of numb our pain. And I do that. I've done that as well. This time I decided to go to my Bible app, and I found a scripture that said, I had never saw the scripture before.
Wow.
Write what I told you in a book. And I can't remember the scripture right now, but if you Google it, you'll find it says, and God is saying, write what I told you in a book. And so that day I got up and dusted off my computer and began to finish the book.
Wow.
And I said, this was right before the pandemic. So God was like, I need you to stop wallowing in your pain, stop trying to figure it out, and just write the book. And I'm going to do what only I can do. I'm going to open the doors. I never knew that my story was going to be as impactful as it was. And what the enemy wanted was for me to lay in that discouragement and not really understand what this season was all about. And so the one thing I want to leave with the women is that are watching is you either have to trust God or you don't. You have to know God's nature. You have to know who God is. You have to know that he's a good father. You have to know that he does not lie. You have to know that his plans for you are good, no matter what it looks like. Because if it's not good right now, it's going to get good. It's going to get better. But you have to trust that God is leading you somewhere. Because if you don't trust him, then you're going to, just like the Israelites, you may never reach the promised land because you're going to be filled of complaints and bitterness. And you're not going to allow him to get you to where he's trying to get you to go.
I'm not really sure I know like which question to ask next. But if this is resonating with you, if you're watching live, can I just implore you, if you haven't already, please share this with your network. Let people know that Dr. Tiffany is on, and please ask questions. We do these live because we want to be able to have a conversation. And we know so many of you want to work with a coach, or maybe you just want to get started. This is a fantastic way to just kind of do a little pulse check to see if Dr. Tiffany's story resonates with yours, and to ask her questions. This is real life stuff, right? So we appreciate all of you that are sharing in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, I want to say hey to all my YouTube family. We are building up that platform as well, because it's such a great way to get this kind of high quality content, and to hear people's stories. I don't know about you, but book knowledge is great, but I want to know, what's the practical application? Like, how did you do it? How did they do it? Dr. Tiffany, you like that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said so much, but you talked about knowing who God is to help you navigate those times in your life when it feels like, the rest of the world, the Netflix and food and doing all of those things may be a better panacea, maybe that thing that can fill your heart. And we all know that those things don't actually fill your heart, right? They are resources, come on, but they're not sources.
Right.
They're not our source right? They're resources, but they're not sources. You had to get to know God. And I love this. I love this idea of, that for those of us that are experienced leaders, we have all of the things, right? We go to our computer, or we get on LinkedIn and we ask for, to meet with somebody or whatever, or maybe we call that friend and we say, hey, can I pick your brain or whatever? We do those things. But really, in those seasons when we're challenged, when things are difficult, it's actually an invitation. Pastor Andy, for those of you that may be new and you don't know who Pastor Andy Smith is, he's our community pastor. He is executive pastor for Influencers Atlanta. I always want to shout out my influencers, fam. Dr. Ashley and Jane Evans are our global senior pastors, and all of the leaders at Influencers Atlanta. He talks a lot about this idea that we can fill those holes with things that will not sustain us, right? So when we get in those difficult situations, we go to the things that we have the best habits with. Can I talk about that for a minute? we talk about what kind of habits are you forming, right? God is inviting us to develop the habit of being in relationship with him and knowing his voice, remembering that he is a good God for those of us that are believers. Dr. Tiffany, so you started finally obeying, right?
Yes.
Y'all know the scripture that says obedience is better than sacrifice. Pastor Andy talked about it yesterday. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And as it turns out, you wrote a book, come on anxiety right before the pandemic. God was setting you up.
Yes.
He was setting you up to write a potentially world-changing resource. But it took you a minute. Can you talk for a minute for those leaders, ministry leaders, workplace leaders, community leaders, politicians, whomever is watching? Can you talk to them about kind of that place of being in, I'm frustrated. I want that promotion, but I'm not getting it. That waiting season, the waiting season. Can you talk a little bit about how do you navigate, like practically, how do you navigate waiting seasons?
So the one thing that I would say is, like I've already said, don't try to figure out why it's not working as far as from God's standpoint.
Come on.
What you have to do is work on you. A lot of times we're asking for things that we're not ready for. There's a reason for the delay. And so once you trust that there's a reason for the delay, then you can begin to work on yourself. You can begin to do the things that only you can do. You can begin to prepare. You begin to plan. God can work on you. And so you have to really begin to tune out distractions too, because a lot of times we do go to other things that can't satisfy us. So I think that is sometimes God is intentionally quiet because he wants you to seek him for the answers. He wants you to go to him instead of going to everything else. And so whenever what I've learned is whenever there's seems to be a delay, I go to God and say, God, you said I can have this. This is in your will for my life. I know your promises. Is there something that I'm not doing that I need to be doing? Or is there something that I'm doing that I need to stop doing? Will you just give me wisdom? Will you give me insight that I don't know? Jeremiah, in Jeremiah, when it says, call to me and I will answer you and tell you things you do not know, hidden mysteries, things that you would never know on your own. The way that you call to him is you seek him. You go into the secret place and you allow him to really heal you from things that may be hindering you from moving forward. A lot of times we get into being complaining, and we, like you said, Karen, we go to our friends, we go to LinkedIn, we go to different sources, and all that's going to do is just confuse you even more because God has the answers that we're looking for. So usually you just want to prepare. You don't want to waste. What the enemy wants is for you to waste your waiting season because you sit by, whatever your choice is. If you like watching Netflix and binging on Netflix, if you like food, whatever it is, the enemy wants you to go to that versus trusting in God and going to God. And so you will begin to go around the same mountain like the Israelites for 40 years when God wanted you to get there in 11 days. And so you have to begin to say, what is it about me? What am I doing, or what do I need to start doing or stop doing that would allow me to get to where I want to get? And just trust God and don't try to figure it out on your own. Just know that the plans that he has for you are good. And what you do is you prepare and you plan. And you
can we pause right there? That was a whole word. It was a session. It was a workshop. It was a preach. It was all of that. I hope y'all got this. If you're watching this on replay, don't forget to put #replay so we know you're there. You said the enemy wants you to waste your waiting season. Now let's tie this back to knowing your story. Let's tie this back. We can get so focused on where we are in the moment in our story.
Yes.
That we forget that God works all things together for his good. Think about that. All things together for his good. My sister, Cherie Knowles, who is CEO of HRKS, which is an HR consulting firm. Y'all check it out if you're looking for some resources, if you're looking for some excellent support. She posted this yesterday. All things work together for good. So if we believe that in the moment we may not understand our story, and to be clear, I don't know anywhere in the Bible that the Lord commands us to understand.
Right.
He doesn't command us to understand. You may need to understand something in your business, but he does not command us to understand. He commands us to obey.
Right.
All throughout scripture, he says, go and do. I command you. You shall, right? He commands us to go and obey. And so if you believe that he works all things together for good, and you begin looking at your story and where you are right now as a collection of pieces that God is working together for good, he's working all that together. It changes and begins to shift how you look at your story.
Sure does.
Come on. When I began to see that what I was going through was actually not designed to crush me. Pastor Andy preached about this yesterday. We have to stop looking at our story as opportunities to be angry, to be wounded.
Yes.
Yeah. When you start growing in God as a leader, I'm talking to leaders, like we can have a whole separate conversation about what a leader is, but I'm talking for those of you that are responsible for something or someone, a company, a business, a family, a family member. If you have influence, come on, if you have influence, you're a leader. You do not have to have a big corporate title. You do not have to have a multi-million-dollar business to be a leader. I think this is the season where God is calling people forward to do the things that you're talking about. But this idea that you can stay so stuck in your story where you are right now that you forget God is working all things together for good. I love what you said about asking God, like, God, what are you trying to get me to see? Right? As opposed to what are you trying to do to me? What are you trying to get me to see? Can you speak into that for a minute?
Yes. And this is what I just felt like I needed to touch on this as well. One of the things that I talk about in my book, Peace Stealers, when you're going through your story, the intention, I talk about this so much on my lives. What I feel like when God says, I formed you in your mother's womb. Before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you and I set you apart and made you a prophet to the nations. A prophet is, I know we have the office of prophet, but also a prophet is someone just simply with a message from God, a message. And so when you're in your story, when you've gone through different things, the reason why is because God formed you. This world tries to conform you because where God wants you to be, where God is trying to take you, that promised land, that dream, that vision that God has for your life. You may have a vision. Hopefully your vision aligns with God's vision. But the whole purpose of you going through your trauma and your story is to try to change your identity so that you're conformed. Because where God is taking you, you need to be authentically, unapologetically you. But when you go through these different storms and there are people that come into your life, they speak into your life, they plant little seeds of doubt, they plant seeds of insecurity. Those are the things that the enemy likes to use to keep you silent, to keep you from moving forward. So when God begins to want to elevate you, you are performing. And that's what I want to talk about. When you begin to perform and you're not yourself. We are living in a time, I believe, maybe a few years ago, maybe you could have got away with performing and just, being somebody else. But I think after the pandemic, people are hungry for authenticity, and people who are genuine, and they can smell a phony in someone who is not themselves. So you may be asking God, why aren't you elevating me? First of all, what is your motives? Why do you want to be a leader? Why do you want to be promoted? Do you need to heal that wound for when you were a child, when your dad said you would never amount to anything? Are you trying to prove yourself to people in your past? Why do you want this so bad? Because God is not going to promote something that is going to, your character can't keep you there. And so you have to learn that you can't perform. You have to have pure motives, and you have to want to do it because you want God to get the glory, and you want God to place you somewhere so that you can be a prophet, you can have a message, and your life can be a story, because people are hungry. People who were not even checking for Jesus are now looking for something real. And you going there performing, trying to be, you're flashing your wealth, and you're trying to be somebody that you're not. It's not going to draw anybody to Jesus. He needs you to be secure in who he made you to be, and not perform, because your identity is very important for where God is getting you, wants to take you. He needs you to be who he formed you to be, not who you want to be, not who this world has conformed you to be, but who he made you to be. So I think for leaders, I would say, don't perform. Heal those wounds in your heart that are going to, because sometimes you are trying to live out a dream to impress other people, or you need to feel important. We need you to be authentic and know who you are, so that you can lead people to some place authentic, and not to a place, a fantasy land, or some, it's not all about you, but it's about a higher mission. Like you are, like I talked about in my last live, you are like an arrow in God's quiver. He's been hiding you. He's ready to launch you.
Come on.
Your mouth is a missile. It's a message that God needs you to deliver somewhere. But he has to be the one who's speaking to you, and not other people, not people pleasing, not I want to impress the people, so I'm not going to say what I think God is telling me to say.
Wow.
All of that ties into God elevating your story, because he's not going to elevate a story that's not really your story. He's going to elevate who he made you to be and where he wants you to be.
I, again, have no idea where to start, but y'all, we are going to be recording the after show where Dr. Tiffany and I, this is pre-recorded, and we place this after show. We are building the library. We've got 3 episodes coming up that are going to rock your world. You can find those when they get posted in the free Facebook community. So if you are participating and you're a member of this public page, remember, it is a free group. Just check the box at the top right corner of the banner of this Facebook page. And for those of you that are on YouTube, hop over to our group page, which is Rock Your Vision. John, can you put that up there? I think it's somewhere in the comments there. But just so you know how to find us, we're going to be recording the after show this afternoon at 4:30. So that'll be available. And Coach Tiffany and I are going to go a lot deeper in this. But you said a few things that really, really just spoke to me. I mean, just like hit me. I don't know if y'all say it. I had the ugly face. That's what I do when I hear something that really resonates. But, this idea that people can be at different places in their story. There was a time when I did not believe I had anything worth telling. I know that's hard to believe. There was a time when I was so broken and so hurt by the things that had happened to me in my life. And I was an adult. I was married. I was so wounded and winded that what I presented and how I showed up in the world was very wounded. My language was wounded. My countenance was wounded. And my conversation was wounded. And you can hear that, right? Jessica Banner and I were chatting the other day about the power of confession and telling your story, and understanding the difference between venting and processing. Come on, this is deep, y'all. There's a difference between venting and processing. And I really, when she said that, it just like, I've been thinking about that since she said it. But it also is very powerful. And this is a power play for y'all, particularly for those of you that are leaders and you're called to something, but maybe you're still trying to find your way. First of all, you have to have permission from someone to vent and process. So if you are out there running your mouth and you're telling everybody your story or complaining about everything that's going on and not going right, that is actually not a biblical, godly way to handle what's happening to you. Now, there was a time in my life where I could not afford a counselor. In fact, I remember going to a counselor in my community at the time. This was probably 30 years ago. And I couldn't afford her. And so I gave up, and I'm like, well, you know, if she understood my story, if she really cared about me, y'all ain't got nothing to do with that. There are so many resources, and Dr. Tiffany is one of them that you can add to your arsenal as a vision-driven leader. But the first step is to acknowledge, I need to know my story. Just because you're going through right now, just because you have something that maybe you're looking to God to heal or looking to God to do, does not mean you know your story, right? So the first power play, or maybe this is the second one, I lose track, is to know that to acknowledge that you need to know your own story, right? Start by writing it down. Dr. Tiffany talked about the fact that she just started journaling, and I know she's a big journaler, but can I just say, if you need a place to start, please go and buy this book. I'm going to be gifting 5 of these books. And Dr. Tiffany knows I buy these in bulk, like I buy 5 at a time at least. I'm going to be gifting 5 of these to women who need to know their own story. Okay. You either need to be in the live or you need to be coming back to the replay and put #replay. I'm going to take everybody's names and I'm going to be gifting 5 of these books. Start somewhere by writing your story. Jessica Banner is a huge journaler. Start by knowing that you need to know your own story, and then just start writing your story on paper and write until until you feel a release to take a breath. And what I found is that I go back to my story. I've been writing for, I don't know how long. I'm a prolific writer, and I'm always going back and remembering something. And what I really want to say this, particularly to those of you who are leaders, you're currently leading, you're leading a team or a ministry or something like that, do not forsake getting help. Y'all need to hear me, because I know we're accustomed to doing it on our own. Go somewhere and get help. Check in with your church, check in with your medical, your health insurance. Dr. Tiffany is in the healthcare industry. Find ways to get help from a licensed professional. Do not go out there and try to do it on your own. Go to somebody who is rooted in the word and who can help you navigate your own story. Because I find what you'll discover is that the Lord will begin to reveal the things to you that you need to heal, that you need to address. Come on. And here we go. I'm going to make somebody mad, that you need to let go of. Because not every part of your story needs to be out there for the world. So check yourself when you're doing this to everybody, right? Because not everybody is meant to handle your story. And then get the support and the help that you need to work through those things. But now I want to move, as we get ready to close, I want to move into telling your story. You wrote this book, Dr. Tiffany, right before the pandemic. And all along, thank God, you finally got the message that there was something God was inviting you to. Can you talk about, for that leader, male or female, that leader who's like, you know what, I feel stuck and I feel like I've got a story and I feel like I've got something to say or something to give. Can you talk to that person who maybe feels like their story doesn't matter, or maybe they're so stuck? What would you leave us with to kind of get started, to get that momentum, what we call that jumpstart to knowing and telling our stories?
I think I would say that your story does matter. Your story, there's somebody out there that can relate to your story.
That's good.
I know some people may say, well, I don't have a story that's like movie worthy or book worthy, but there's somebody out there who feels the same way, that wants to feel seen. Your story matters. And one of the things that I think about, I always come back to the word. I always think about the widow with the little bit of oil, who said, when went to Elijah and was saying, I don't have anything except a little bit of oil. Well, your story is that except, that you think is not enough.
Come
And I
on.
love that story because God used that little bit of oil to allow her to pay off her bills, allow her to live off of. And so sometimes it is strategic for you to discount who you are and what you have as not enough, as insignificant. But what you do, little is much in God's hands. So
Yeah.
your little story or what you feel like you is not significant, it's not for you to determine that. Your responsibility is to be obedient and put it out there. I had no idea that my book would impact you the way it did, Karen. It was
Yeah.
an honor. And I think it was God letting me know because you're someone who I love everything that you do. And so for you to come along and at first, when you said it, I was like, oh, she's just saying this. But literally, you have been buying books, you would highlight it, you send me the pictures. And it's like all the people who have written me like messages and who I never thought
Come on.
that the book would impact them. I thought my story did not matter as well.
Wow.
So God can be setting you up for a miracle and can be setting you up for what you really want in the end. It was my mission has always been to save, teach, and reach souls. And
Yeah.
part of that is helping people, women in their souls to process some of the things that may be causing them to be anxious. Because
Wow.
I'm in the medical industry, but I know that there are some chemical imbalances, but I know that there are also imbalances in our everyday life that can contribute to the depression and the anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I know what I lived.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of the reason why at first I didn't want to write because I was thinking, I'm not a therapist, but I know my story and I
Mm-hmm.
know that God was telling me to write. So me being obedient
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to literally, the income that came in from the book, the lives that are changed, it really impacted my life and other people's life. So your story is not just for you. You're being
Yeah.
selfish when you hold on to the story. There's somebody that can relate to your story that needs to feel seen, that needs to feel heard, and you just never know what your story can do. If you
Wow.
just touch one person, that's what I always said. If this can just touch one person,
Come on.
then I've done what I'm supposed to do. But
Wow.
God is not a God of small. He's a God of multiplication. He's a God of
Mm.
more than you can imagine. So you just be obedient with what you feel is insignificant and allow God to do the rest.
Wow. Woo, y'all, this goes so fast. We've got so much more to talk about. I'm so excited because Dr. Tiffany and I are going to get a chance to spend time together this afternoon at 4:30 when we do the recording for the after show. Remember that you can access that in the free group coaching community. It's a private community, but it's absolutely free to join. Just click the red button at the top of the Facebook banner on our public page, and you can jump in. And when we download those episodes and the workbooks and vision kits that go along with it, you will have access to those and add those to your arsenal. Dr. Tiffany, thank you so much for just pouring into us this morning from your own experience, being obedient and being willing to share your journey to that. How can people work with you?
Well, you can go to my website, which is osoucoaching.com. And also you can follow me on Instagram, which is also osoucoaching.com, and Facebook, osoucoaching.com. And thank you so much for having me. I always love being on with you.
Well, we're about to change the world. We're going to rock our vision and help other people rock theirs. Y'all, it has been an absolute joy to spend time with you this morning. And here's what I would ask you to do. First of all, would you jump into the chat even after we end the broadcast and just thank Dr. Tiffany? The leaders that we bring to you do so because they believe in our vision. They believe in this community. And we know that there's a vision-driven leader out there somewhere. And the way that I say it is, what would it be like if one person times a million went out there and rocked the vision that God gave them? Can you imagine how we could change the world? That's why I'm obsessed, because I think about what would have happened if I had played small, if I had just tolerated what the enemy was trying to do to me. And remember, the enemy doesn't have to actually destroy you. All he has to do is distract you. All he has to do is distract you, folks. So I am encouraging you and challenging you to get involved. If not in this community, get involved in a community. You do not have to be on the hustle bus. The hustle bus is optional, and you don't have to do it alone. We've got tools and resources and opportunities to help you unlock some of those things that keep you stuck, that keep you playing small. We are so grateful for each and every one of you. Remember to share this and invite people to join in the chat even afterwards. Make sure to join the free Facebook community. We'll be taking names from there as well to do the drawing for 5 of these amazing books. Peace Stealers, you can find it on Amazon. Order some for gifts. It's coming holiday time. And again, Dr. Tiffany, we thank you so much for taking your time to join us. Y'all remember, you've got more options than you realize. We will see you next week.